My God, why have you forsaken me? Many of us might be familiar with these words because they are the words of Jesus uttered in the midst of pain on the cross. But when we read the entirety of Psalm 22, we realize that this was the psalm that Jesus was quoting and remembering. Psalm 22 is a gift to us. It's a psalm that begins with lament, that feeling that God does not hear our cries, does not see what we're going through. Again, we need to see Psalms like 22 as a gift to us because it shows us that we can come fully to God with all of our doubts, all of our fears, all of our emotion and feeling. And this psalm of lament also instructs us, it teaches us that when in those moments in our lives that we feel the silence of God, can we remember what is also true? And there's one little word that reminds us of what is true. The next verse that talks about yet. This little word yet is represented by one Hebrew character, vav. And one little word, the word yet, this one little Hebrew character changes the tone of the psalm. As the psalmist, attributed to King David, remembers what is true, that God is still enthroned. David recalls the stories of old that he knows, that he has experienced and have been told to him. The psalm also instructs us that this isn't a once and for all solution to just remember, because the psalm then goes back to but I'm still mocked and scorned by others. When we are in pain, remembering the one truth about God does not necessarily make all the pain go away. We know that to be true from our life experience. David, the author of this psalm, is still confronted with the mocking of his enemies. People scorn me, he says. But again, Psalm 22 goes back to, and yet. Psalm 22:24 says, he is not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. God has not hidden his face from the afflicted one, but has listened to his cry for help. Think back to how we began this devotion, that this was what Jesus quoted. The afflicted one, the one who suffered for us, said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Perhaps was Jesus calling upon this verse of the psalm to be reminded himself that his Father, the God of the universe, would not despise or scorn his suffering, and he would listen to his cry for help. This week I was reminded of this word, scorn. Jesus, the object of scorn on the cross, did some scorning of his own. The book of Hebrews chapter 12 says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. When we are the object of scorn, derision, and being made fun of, rejected by others, may we turn to the one who endured all of that on our behalf and remember that he himself turned the shame of the cross on its head and turned it into our victory. Jesus scorned the shame on the cross. Finally, the end of the psalm reminds us that the suffering of the afflicted one for us, the lament that we feel, also has another truth in it. Psalm 22, 27, and 28 says, all the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the nations will bow down before him because dominion, authority, belongs to the Lord. He rules over the nations. Friends, one day, every nation, every tribe, every tongue will see and confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Even in this psalm, we have a glimpse of the plan of God. Though the Psalms were written as worship songs for Israel, contained within these lyrics and poetry, even amidst the pain, is the truth that God is not only the God of Israel, but the entire world. So whatever you find yourself in today, if you are in pain and suffering, wondering if God hears, wonder if God hears and knows your cries, may you remember what is true about him. He is still on his throne. He hears and responds to the cries of his beloved people. Hears your cries, whatever affliction you may go through. And may you fix your eyes on Jesus today, who endured suffering as well and knows what you're going through, and yet turned the shame of the cross on its head and scorned it. And victory is ours through him. Amen.